So get comfortable. Everybody should have, again, either your journal or pen and paper, something so that you can do some reflecting on. So let's just start with some nice cleansing breaths. So take a deep breath in, let it out. This next one, take it in and let's hold it for 5. Let it out. Move your neck around if you need to. Loosen your shoulders up. Those places where you carry tension in your body, work to just relax them. If it's your lower back, sit back in your chair. If it's your neck, do a few neck rolls. And take another deep breath in. So I want you to just keep your eyes closed for a few minutes. And I want you to think about this year. And I want you to call to mind, and it does not have to do with school, just in general, what thing or things, maybe there's lots of things. And if there's lots of things, then pick 3. Did you really love from this year? That made you either laugh out loud, feel good to be a parent, feel good about all of your strivings. Like, what things did you really love? Your parenting, your partnering, your relationships, you just being you. Maybe you've made some strides in some areas that you didn't think you would. So just sit with that for a minute. Get those things really clear in your head. See those experiences. Like, see them crystal clear, and it's stuff that you love. So I should be able to look across the sea of cameras and see lots of smiles because you're thinking about things that you love. Things that you love. Okay, open your eyes and take the next 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds to write those things down, either in your journal or on that piece of paper. Write them down as vividly as you can so that you can look back at this in a week and go, oh yeah, that's what I loved. So no shorthand here. Take the time to write it out. If you have to make some quick notes so that you remember later, take those last few seconds to do that. And then go back to closing your eyes. Okay, so now we've had some happy in there. Just take a minute. We're not going to take nearly as long on this because it's easy to wallow, but just take a minute to think about things that you could have done without this year. And they don't have to necessarily have to do with externals like elections and pandemics. Maybe there were some things in your life that you wished that you could have done better at this year, or some experiences that you could wish that you could have risen to the occasion differently for. Doesn't necessarily have to be what everybody else is thinking in the world. So just take a minute to just bring that to your mind. And often, people don't do this part. And this part is that piece of having humility and accountability and knowing, hey, that wasn't great. It wasn't cool that either I did that or that I experienced that. But this is how I'm going to change that next time. This is how I'm going to rise to the occasion differently. So that part's really important to always do. So once you have that pretty vividly in your mind, open your eyes and write it down. Write it down. Take the next few seconds and just write it down. Okay, finish that piece up. All right, back to closing your eyes for just a few minutes. Almost done with this part. So now I want you to focus on school, on your lessons that you've done so far this year. If you're new to Waldorf Essentials and you just started in the last month or last week, even if you're not, like come to a space where you can just bring school to the forefront of your mind. And I want you to, again, think about things you loved about the first semester. What maybe they were certain lessons that you did, maybe they were experiences that you had with your child, maybe they were planning experiences. Sometimes the experiences of school for me don't have anything to do with my kid. They have to do with how I planned and those sorts of things. So take a few seconds and really think about those spaces of what did you really love about school in first semester. And if you live in the Southern Hemisphere and you're moving into your first semester, I invite you to think about what you loved in your last semester of school. So let's take a minute or so to think about that. Okay, write it down. Write it down. And I think this one is really important, especially as we're talking about planning. Write down that thing that you loved. And again, if it was something that surrounded a particular lesson, what was it about that lesson that was so great? Did you show up in a great way? Did you have it planned out really well? Maybe you didn't have it planned out at all. I always think it's funny when moms are like, it was actually that one that I just pulled out of my butt that just was like great. And then they think that that's how they should do all their lessons. No, it's not. There were other pieces that came into play there. So what about that space did you love? And what were the elements that made it so magical? So just take a few seconds to write that down. maybe we're just feeling really great that day and it came together, or what were the elements? And then as you finish that up, let's take some time to think about what you could have done without. Like what things happened. So again, go back to your space of closing your eyes and getting still, and call to mind either something that happened that you could have done without, or an action, or something that you are wishing or hoping goes better, wishing didn't happen or hoping goes better this next time around. So take a few seconds to just really bring that to your mind so that you can really see it. Now let's just take a few seconds to write it down. Write down those things. What were the things that you could have done without? Okay. All right. Now let's dive in. I invite you to continue to revisit these things. Continue to reflect on the good, reflect on the things that you wish you had done better. And with that, let's take that into sort of this next stage in schooling. So if you're following along with us, this is from the mid-year review from Planning for Peace. And it's simple. It's not rocket science. That's why I invited everybody. Because I think it's important to always evaluate. So I evaluate several times a year. I evaluate before I start my planning, so that I can sort of think about where we're at, because this is the child I'm planning for then, so I should know where I'm at and where they are. I evaluate in the middle of the year, and I tend to evaluate at the end of the year. So sometimes that planning piece and that end of the year evaluation, they overlap a bit, because I'm planning before the year is definitely over. So this mid-year one tends to be my favorite one to do, because it ends up being the most accurate about my child right now. So I want you to take a minute and think about your children. We're only going to go through one child right now. So if you've got several children like me, I got a brood. So let's just go through one child while we're in this meeting together, and then we'll take some time and talk about any questions you have about planning, and then you can come back and sort of do your other children later. So with your first child, just write down their name, their age. I like to write down not just the year, but how many months we're at the middle of the year, just so that you have a good, accurate account. And for those of you using Planning for Peace, I keep mine. Like, I keep all of my Planning for Peace journals so that I can go back and look, not just at the lessons that I did to make my life easier, but to look at how far my child has come. So I can see sort of what things they were struggling with and what things have gotten better, or maybe there's been a regression. I'm trying to sort out where that came from and what happened. So you really want to be able to have that, have that in mind when you're working through this right now. So that first question, where are we? So take just a few minutes to write down where you are. So for myself, right now, the child that is still being homeschooled is Soraya. She's 9.5, and a little bit more than 9.5, 9 and 8 months. And where I am with her is, this is what I'm going to be writing down. I'm going to write down that her reading is like beyond my wildest dreams, taking off. I'm going to write down her interests right now so that I remember, when I look back, I can remember and I can see how far she's grown. Which for her right now, it's all about dinosaurs and those silly axolotl lizards. I guess they're not lizards, salamanders. Anyway, so I'm writing down current obsessions. Writing down the fact that she tends to get obsessed. There's like some ADHD stuff going on for sure. I'm going to be writing down the supplements that she's on right now so that I can sort of track that piece over time. Like what supplements is she taking right now, and how are they being delivered, frequency, so that I remember, because here's the thing, the mind forgets all the time. So writing it down is super helpful. So just take a few minutes to sort of write down where you are. And, I will also write down lesson blocks that we didn't get to, or maybe lessons, not blocks, but lessons that we didn't get to. And that I wanted, like there was 3 days of lessons that we didn't finish before the holiday. So now I have this choice. Do I just scrap them, or do I pick them back up and finish them? In my case, there have been times that I've scrapped them, depending on what they are, but it's the 10 Commandments. I kind of need to do it. So I can't just scrap it. So I have to then readjust my planning. And that, if you've got planning days set aside for this holiday, I highly recommend doing this piece first, this evaluation piece first, and then you can do your planning. So I have my planning day scheduled for Thursday. And maybe I'll be live for some of it. I don't know. So take a few minutes to write down where you are. Okay, so finish that up. And then the next question just is, what things give me encouragement or cause me concern at this point in the school year? So take a few minutes to write those things down. And maybe there's nothing that causes you concern, which is great. Or maybe there's 5 things that cause you concern. So write those things down. You don't have to solve them right now. Just write them down. Often we're carrying them all in our head and on our heart, and it really helps to write them down, because then they're not so big, is that's one piece of it. And also that then we can deal with them once they're written down. So things that might give you pause, write them down. Maybe your child's doing great academically, but they're not sleeping well. Or maybe, they're sleeping and eating well and they're getting plenty of movement, but there's some struggles with math. Write those things down, and allow it to just be. And once it's written down, then you have an opportunity to do something about it. And sometimes what's funny, what's funny to me is the things I write down are not things that I may have voiced before. Like they might be something that was hiding there in the recesses of my brain. And then writing it down made me then completely change the course of some of the things that I was doing. So, just take that time. Okay, so finish that up. And again, people often ask me, so what do you do with this? Again, take this into your planning. So if you've got planning time set aside today or later this week, take this into your planning, sit and study it. If you've got more than one child, do the same thing for the other children so that you've got all of those pieces together and you've got it in one spot and you can refer to it often or as needed.